Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your family cruise a little smarter. And I'd like to welcome back to the show today, all the way down in Florida. How are you doing today, Christy?
I am well, Steve. How are you?
Pretty good. We say, the podcast to help you and your family cruise a little smarter. And I think we've been all over the board as far as cruising and cruising information. But we are finally, I think, really bringing another good episode out with a lot of packed information from people who will be sailing starting August 9th in the Disney Dream and beyond.
Yeah, I'm excited. And did you know that the Disney Dream is doing a test cruise right now?
It is. And if you are a fan of the DCL cruise nerd, Megan, she's been on our show a couple months ago. Well, actually, I say a couple months, but it's probably been a year ago now. But just a fun person to talk to. She's on the Dream right now on a test cruise. So make sure you're following along with her, or you can go back and look at her archive stuff on YouTube, Facebook, and everything else to kind of get some great tips and tricks as to what to expect on the Disney Dream sailings.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, let's jump into today's episode, and I'm going to let you introduce our guest.
So I'm super excited to have our guest back. She is the creator of Gluten-Free and Dairy-Free at WDW. So that is her website and YouTube channel. She herself is celiac and then eats dairy-free occasionally, used to have to do it all the time. And lucky for her, she gets to bring it back in. She travels with her boyfriend who has a fish, shell, peanut, tree nut, chicken, turkey, and cabbage allergy. So she is the expert of all things allergy travel, if you ask me. So welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me and for having me back, and a nice little introduction. And yes, we have all the things when it comes to special dietary needs. So super excited to be talking about cruising and cruising with special diets with both of you today.
So, and this is exciting because you are booked on the Dream this summer.
Yes, by happenstance. So because of everything happening the last year and a half, we had an Alaska cruise on the Wonder booked. It got canceled, we rebooked, we rescheduled. So we put in a placeholder cruise because we rescheduled so many times. And it just so happens that it is in August on the Disney Dream. So we are both kind of still in shock and still maybe won't believe it until we're actually on the ship sailing. But we are super excited to go.
I'm so excited for you. And when are you traveling?
We are scheduled to sail on August 23rd on a 4-day Disney Dream cruise.
And who's traveling with you?
Brandon, of course. So Brandon's my significant other. So if you watch our YouTube channel, we will be doing some cruise vlogging on there too. So we'll be sharing that. But we're cruise junkies. We're Disney cruise junkies. This will be my 6th Disney cruise now and Brandon's 5th. So he'll now be gold after this cruise. We're very excited and now super exciting. But yeah, we're just stoked. We're excited to be back on the cruise.
And have you sailed on the Disney Dream before? I know you're down in Florida, so the Dream leaving out of Port Canaveral. Is that a ship you've been on before?
Yes, so this will actually be our return to the Dream. We've sailed on the Dream many, many times, so we're very much looking forward to it. And we kind of joke that it is our home cruise ship, so super excited to be back on it.
Aw.
I love that. I love how everybody has like their own ship. Christy, what's yours? I think I know, but...
It was definitely the Fantasy. So it's the one I was on the most, I've been on the most. I love it. Of course, pre-pandemic, I was supposed to have a cruise on the Fantasy in 2020. Now it probably will be a shorter cruise because it's just easier to get away for a shorter period of time than to plan for that whole week long.
Yeah, you're going to be spoiled by the Wish, aren't you? Wish, wish, wish. Oh, we're on the Wish again.
Can't hope. I hope.
I love it. Well, we're going to talk about your check-in process, Sarah, getting ready for your cruise on the 23rd. Before we jump into, and you've got a lot of points to make, I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. Before we jump into it, what did Disney Cruise Line provide you? Have they provided a lot of information through emails, or how did you get some of this information we're going to go through?
So I will say that for a pretty long amount of time, Disney was pretty quiet about the information about the cruise. So interestingly enough, our cruise itinerary changed a bit. And so we were slated to do a day at sea Nassau, and then of course Castaway Cay. And just about, I would say about 40 days before we sailed, someone in the cruise group that I'm in said, oh my gosh, our itinerary has changed. Now everything's reversed. And oh, now I see we have 2 days at Castaway Cay. And so none of us had heard anything from Disney. And we were all like, is this real? Is this happening? Is that a thing? So that was adjusted. And then I would say about 48 hours or so after that, we did get an official email from Disney saying, hey, your itinerary has changed. Here's why. And just gave us a little bit of information about our activities. Things would be rescheduled. So that was super helpful. But after that, we have not gotten a ton of information. We've gotten a couple emails that have said, hey, be sure to check out the Know Before You Go information on Disney's website. That is really the DCL website there. That's really the place to go for the most current information. So we haven't gotten a lot of information via email or other places, but mostly saying, hey, go to the website and check that out.
Okay. Yeah. We're just starting to get information. We do our onboard booking stuff, our activity booking on Monday for our November cruise. So we're just starting to get some emails this past week on getting ready for that. Christy, the double dips to Castaway Cay, those continue all the way through August, right? On the Dream?
Yes. I think it's even in the beginning of September that it's continued on. And I am so jealous. I kept staring. And Steve, I texted you and I was like, I'm trying to get on one of these cruises, but my son will be back in school. We have a million other trips booked. Work is kind of crazy. So I probably shouldn't be trying to escape, but I really want to go on one of those cruises.
It's so tempting, right? I mean, especially because the double dips do usually cost quite a bit of extra money and they're not always as common. So yeah, I think people were pretty excited when they saw the double dip.
Yeah, the double dip is definitely a unicorn. Like they'll have, one in the summer, or sometimes they'll do a whole summer of them when they can work it out, but they always are more money. Or the Fantasy has a double dip coming up over Thanksgiving, which is like a sell your kidney type price situation. So it's a unicorn. It's exciting.
Yeah, I kind of hope that ours becomes a double dip in November as well. I shouldn't say that, but you know what? I shouldn't say that. We just did a port adventure series on Nassau with Zach down in Atlanta, and he made some good points. I think there's some things that we'd like to do in Nassau. So actually, I hope we do that. Okay, so let's kind of jump into some of your points, Sarah. One of the things, and I think this first point is really good, where you say bring your patience, understanding, and kindness.
Yes, I think that's really critical in everything in life right now, right? Things are kind of crazy. Things are changing. And certainly travel and going on a Disney cruise is going to be no different, right? There's big bumps in the road that are going to happen as they transition and they adjust to relaunching the cruises. Things are going to adapt and adjust. We've seen that on the Magic. They've adjusted and changed there. So I think just being flexible, being understanding, being patient, and being kind really goes a long way, both for your own sanity and for that of all the people who are involved, all the cast members and all the other guests.
Yeah, we just had John on, who he and his family sailed on the Magic, and they had one main show in the theater, Disney Dreams. And then as soon as he got back, they added Tangled to it. So now they have Tangled and Disney Dreams on the Magic right now too. So to your point, things can change daily and maybe even hourly as Disney kind of tries to get things figured out as the ship starts sailing again. So you're also a member of your cruise group on Facebook. How has that helped you?
Yeah. And, I normally, for sort of a Bahamian Nassau cruise, it's not something that I would normally join as a Facebook group. But I really thought this time, especially as we got closer and closer, things didn't look like it was going to get canceled. I'm like, that might be a great source of information. And it definitely has been. There's a ton of people in there who are doing back-to-back cruises. And so they got a lot of the scoop ahead of time, right? Because they're already going through and registering online, doing the online check-in. So they gave us a lot of really good information from their own personal experience that was super helpful when it came time for us to do our online check-in.
And I would say for our listeners to find the Facebook cruise group, it's not a requirement. Sometimes I have fun. I actually just reached out to a Facebook group that I hadn't left from 2016 because there was a bucket that my son used at the beach this past weekend that had been decorated from a fish extender from 2016. And I was able to repost it in that group because we're still, I searched for my groups and I'm still a member. And the person who made the bucket was able to say, oh yes, it was us. And I love that you're still using it. It was just all so fun. So to find your Facebook group, the way I always do it, and I usually find it easier on the computer, is you search the date of the cruise that you're going on. So like August 23rd, 2021. And then I would do Disney Dream. And then I would do so all of that in one sentence in a search. And then you can find your group if that is something you are interested in. You can always reach out and I can help you find it if you ever need to. But usually that's how I find all the groups I'm in.
Yeah, it's a great tip. And, like Christy said, you don't have to be in a cruise group to enjoy your cruising, to be planning and all that stuff. But I thought it was a really great idea right now. And, there's been some really good information, super helpful stuff. There's also been some stuff that maybe wasn't so accurate. So always double check with Disney. Make sure you look at the official documentation. The telephone game doesn't always provide the most accurate and updated stuff. So do look at Disney's official stuff, but the cruise group has provided a lot of really great info.
I'm kind of a cruise group lurker. I kind of just sit back and watch and see what other people post on it. And even some of these, the NASA ones and stuff like that, we've been able to pick up some tips here. But like you said, good point as far as making sure you confirm it with Disney's website. Well, let's jump into kind of the actual, going through the booking process, or not going through the booking process, but the online check-in process. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds as far as what Disney's information is on their know before you go page, because that could change tomorrow.
And it likely will change. And even cruise lines that have already been cruising, they have had several alterations already throughout. Like some cruise lines started without masks and now they're going back to masks with the current state of infections and things like that. So there's just going to be changes that are going to continue to occur potentially up until the day or the day before you guys leave.
So just to touch on the vaccination part of it, right now, Disney is not asking you if you're vaccinated, but you can let them know. How did that work for you, Sarah?
Correct. Yeah, you can voluntarily add that if you want. And if you do add that, you are able to be exempt from certain things like pre-cruise testing. So that is one option. They use an actual third-party service called Safe Passage. It's from Inspire Diagnostics. What you do is you have to create a separate account. And one thing to know is you do need to have a separate account at the time of this recording for every single person in your party. And that includes creating an account for kiddos. Yeah, so in my case, Brandon and I had our own accounts with our own, we both set them up. And we're together in one portal. But interestingly, I can't go through his stuff. So he has to manage all of his information. And then you just go through, you would sign up for some agreements, make sure that you click OK, that you are OK with the things that they're going to disseminate and share. And then you can actually upload your vaccination card. So you can actually put that up there. And then from there, they have 3 tabs within the Safe Passage, which is like a pre-sale screening, an embarkation screening, and disembarkation screening. And then from there, someone will facilitate and say if you're cleared to arrive and sail and disembark with your vaccination status, or if you do need to do testing, then it will have pending until you add in those tests.
And if you're not vaccinated, or if you decline to tell them if you're vaccinated or not, you'll also have to have travel insurance. I think right. we have travel insurance every time anyways, because I would hate to be caught out of the US and have some type of medical problem and think about having to pay for that. Any thoughts on travel insurance there, Christy?
Yeah, we're big fans. We had a show that sadly something went awry with the recording. So we had recorded a show because possibly that cruise that I got that bucket that I already talked about. It was that cruise. My husband had to go to the hospital the day we were embarking on our cruise. He had some issues as soon as we were getting on board, and we actually had to leave the ship, and it was like this whole thing. And it was such a relief to know that the ambulance ride, because they were like, go by ambulance, it'll be quicker, that the whole process was going to be covered basically by our travel insurance. So most of the time you would pay first and then they would reimburse you. And I think before our credit card bill ever came, the entire $6,000 from that day was paid back to us. I just am a big fan. There are private insurance companies that I highly recommend. If you use Disney's insurance, I'm not an insurance agent, I have to say that legally, but it does not cover pre-existing conditions. So if you have one, that is something to consider. And for whatever reason, Disney doesn't tell you that. It's very unclear. I'm actually very frustrated by that part of Disney's insurance policy. But it would also cover, like, if something were to happen leading up to your trip, it could be covered. So I just think travel insurance is really important. You just never know when medically something's going to happen to you or a loved one that's going to alter your trip.
Anything to add, Sarah?
I would agree. Yeah. And especially this day and age. definitely good to have travel insurance.
So with the Inspire Diagnostics Safe Passage, was that a link that came to you when you did your check-in process?
Yes. So we actually got that. We got it, I think, through an email from Disney. So I think we got it both in the online check-in and in an email from Disney. So it was given to us in a couple of different places. So you could do those separately. You could do them at the same time. I think I actually did mine before we did the official online check-in, because I did that at 12:01 in the morning to make sure I got an optimal check-in time. So I think I did it just before in advance, but we got the link from Disney out.
So to note, with the onboard activities that are being booked, and then also with the online check-in process, it is being followed along with your Castaway Key or Castaway Club status. So if you're platinum, you're going to be able to do this ahead of the gold and silvers and on, right, Christy?
Well, not for the online check-in. For this 30-day before your cruise online check-in, literally every single person checks in at the exact same time. So that's going to work really well.
So I stand corrected, but I know, okay, so the onboard booking stuff you can do by Castaway Club status, but the actual online check-in when you're getting your port arrival time and everything is at the same time.
Yeah. So when you want to make like Apollo reservation or a reservation for the spa, if we're going to do that ahead of time or things like that, you do that based on your Castaway Club membership. It's basically midnight the day that they tell you can book your activities. So if they say you could book your activities on the 20th, then on the 19th, if you're on the East Coast, you stay up till midnight and then you book them. Lucky for you West Coasters in this scenario, you just book it on the 19th at like 9 p.m., which is pretty exciting for you guys.
Let's go West Coast. I love it. One advantage. We're not up at the crack of dawn trying to get our Remy slots. Okay, so what was different about the online check-in process, Sarah?
So I think the big key thing was the actual first part of the online check-in, which is where you have to do your guest information. And you actually have to upload some different documents. So normally you do just your basic information, who you are, your address, where you're coming from, where you're going to after the cruise, so that Disney knows that information. But in this particular scenario, you did need to upload a selfie of yourself, which is what you usually get done when you go to the terminal the day you arrive on embarkation day. Sort of like a passport photo, you had to make sure that was uploaded. You also had to upload your citizenship ID, so your passport photo. I think those were the big two differences. Everything else was pretty much the same process through everything else, choosing your embarkation or your arrival time for the port and all that kind of stuff. So that was all pretty standard, but the big difference was needing to upload photos before you go. And I suppose I'll say in terms of the photos, that was definitely something to be aware of in terms of technical difficulties. I think that was the biggest thing that tripped up a lot of people, and certainly was something that was slightly problematic for me. So I did get kicked out of the system once while I was trying to do online check-in. And that was when I was uploading those photos. So they give you some recommendations about formats. I would say if you are a techie person, make sure you have a small JPEG file available so that you can upload it. Big files seem to be really tricky for a lot of people who are cruising in my cruise group. And sometimes the system didn't show your photo. So if you were uploading your passport or your selfie, it didn't actually show it. So you didn't know if you uploaded it correctly or not, which was, again, something that could be a time delay if you are really wanting a certain port arrival time and you're afraid that at 12:01 you're in the Thunderdome and you have to get the time you need and it's all hands on deck. That could be really difficult. So just make sure you have them in kind of reasonable file sizes. If it looks like you've uploaded and you still don't see something, just keep going to the next screen. Chances are it did upload. Disney's tech is just always a challenge.
You made a mention that, be conscious of mobile devices versus desktop or laptop and browsers. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, a lot of people had issues uploading from a mobile device. So I would say if you have a desktop or even a laptop, probably your better bet if you are doing online check-in and you've got a lot of files in terms of images, especially if you've got a big family and you've got to upload 2 different kinds of documentation for every single person in your family. That's probably going to be a better bet than a phone, which seemed to be a little bit more finicky than a desktop or a laptop.
Okay, well, let's talk about the port arrival times itself. It sounds like that's changed a little bit as far as when you can get port arrivals. How did that work for you, Sarah?
Everything is on 15-minute increments as of right now. Again, this could totally change, but as of right now, 15-minute increments. And the earliest port arrival time is 1 o'clock, which I know is, disappointing to a lot of people. It is to us. We're those early people that like to be there. When the port arrives, we like to be on the ship as much as possible, especially because we tend to do shorter cruises. So we want to be on the ship as much as we can.
And it's tough for families for lunchtime. So it really, now you almost, for most people, are going to have to, or at least a lot of people have to do lunch ahead of time before getting to the port, just to be able, because you arrive at one, but that means that you still have to go through and do all the checks and any of the things they're going to do to you before you get on board, and that much longer before you get lunch.
Yeah, totally. I'm an old lady. I need food. So I'm going to have to bring some gluten-free bars with us to make sure we have something in our system.
Definitely. That's
Yeah,
this is why we're dining compatible.
Uh-huh.
So how did you do for your port arrival time? Did you get the one you wanted, or how did it work for you?
We did. So we ended up with the 1 o'clock. And so we're in boarding group 3. Boarding group 3 is the very first group after Concierge and Platinum. So yeah, we got the first group. We are excited about that. And we'll be very curious to see how that actually works in practice when we get there. So
do we think that if you are concierge or platinum, even though you're doing online check-in at the same time everybody else is, that you potentially have the opportunity to have a boarding group 1 or 2? Then is that what it sounds like?
We had one person in our group who's platinum, and they got like boarding group 6. And they were pretty frustrated about that. And then we heard other people in the group say that they had platinum or concierge status and that they were told it was fine. You could arrive anytime that you wanted to. So again, I don't know how that's going to play out. That'll be interesting. We haven't gotten any real official information from Disney that I've seen that addresses those first 2 boarding groups. So it'll be interesting to see how it works.
Yeah, definitely want to hear about that once you get back and once other people get back as well.
We will pass that on. So once you checked in, you got through the whole process. It sounds like you got kind of a PDF, a 1-page PDF with QR codes. How did that look? And is that something that that obviously you need to bring that with you to the port, huh?
Yes. So they recommend that you bring it as a printout. I also got QR codes that I could put on my phone. So I was able to put that into my Apple Wallet for both me and Brandon. But yeah, you got a 1-page list. It has QR codes for each of us, all of our pertinent cruise information, the boarding group that we're in, our arrival time, and then also our assembly station. So it told us where our assembly would be for the muster drill. So that was definitely something that was new.
It will be interesting to see, and I hope they do on the Dream what they did on the Magic, where you've got your QR code. You need to go to your muster station to say, "Hey, I know where that's at," and then at some point, I guess you'll watch videos on TV, is what they put it on. But it would be nice if there would be a way to be able to just watch it on your phone or something like that,
especially ahead of time, like the other cruise lines are doing.
Yeah, that'd be so handy.
Anything else about the check-in process, and then Christy, maybe you want to start off with the booking activities?
Yeah, I don't think there's any other things that I can think of. It was really pretty much like it normally is. I think the 2 big takeaways were adding any of your photos. That's different. And then also the actual online check-in, I'm going to say portal, because it looks like a portal now on your reservation on the website, looks totally different. So it's definitely an upgrade from the way it was before. So you've got lots of different tabs and lots of different areas you can look at when you're on the DCL website and you're starting that online check-in.
So we've done check-in prior to your 30-day mark. So at your normal check-in time, which I think was like 90 days before your cruise, you were able to book your activities for the cruise. Was that normal? And we didn't even know what was happening or whether ships were going to be sailing or what, but was that like a normal booking process for you?
Yeah, totally normal. Same old, same old. Everything was exactly the same. It was more like you said, I don't know if we're going on this cruise. I don't know what we should plan for or not plan for. So we booked adult dining. We did our Paolo brunch. We did Remy for dinner because we were like major FOMO after not being able to travel for 18 months. We're like, we're totally doing Remy. We booked that. And then we did a wine tasting. So we booked that as well. But yeah, everything was super normal. I think the difference for us that we've noticed is closer to the cruise. More people are wanting to book things because they're afraid they won't be able to get it when they're actually on board, and it will only be available for those who have made the reservations. So like I randomly did one for Castaway Cay for like the paddle boats, which we've never reserved before. We just always pop in and grab those. But I was like, I'm going to do this just in case they cap anything. The other thing, Christy will be delighted, because we've had so many people kind of adjusting their cruises and rebooking for different dates. People are getting cabanas at the last minute on Castaway Cay. So people are checking like daily because cabanas are popping up, which is pretty exciting for people who really want a cabana.
That's really exciting and so unheard of nowadays.
Yeah. So I would say if you're doing a cruise in the next 6 months, and because things are changing all the time and people might be canceling their or rebooking their vacation for a different time, keep checking the activities. I've never seen so many things pop up at the last minute as I have on this cruise. So it's worth checking. You might get a cabana out of it.
little early Christmas present.
Uh-huh.
So were you able, did they offer, like, did you even notice the princess meet and greet? Or obviously it would have to be different, but did they offer it at all as something that you could book as an activity?
I did not. So of course we don't have kids, so I did not notice that. And I'm trying to think if people have mentioned that in the cruise group. I don't think people have. And of course, if someone is listening, they're probably like, yes, I already know the answer to this. So yeah, I'm not sure.
And Anna and Elsa, obviously, too. We just don't know yet. I'm assuming they're not allowing people to book those, but again, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, but that's a good question, because even like things like spa passes and stuff like the rainforest room, that's been a big topic of conversation. People have passes they've paid for when they were able to book like a rainforest day pass. And so that pricing and structure is totally changed right now on the Dream. So you get just about 2 hours for up to 10 people for $175. So it's whoever's in your party can only be in the rainforest room, which kind of sounds awesome, but it's $174. And so if you have paid for that day pass and you paid, what was it, like 30 some bucks at this point, that doesn't cover the 174. So people are wondering if that pass they purchased is going to be able to be used, or is just going to go towards other spa services or towards a full $174 pass.
Oh, yeah. So Disney had already sold passes, and then they came up with this book the time.
Right. And you can't even do that right now. So the actual rainforest room can't be booked until you get on the ship.
Huh.
So some people had purchased it. And I think some of those purchases of the rainforest pass were, a year ago, right, when they thought they were going down a ship. So they've just got these legacy things that they've purchased. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that gets tackled.
Definitely want to hear about that. So, and then everything else, I guess, was normal. Like you could book your wine tastings and things like that.
Yep. Everything else was pretty normal.
Well, that's good to hear. We're looking forward to doing either mixology or something like that while we're on board in November. So once you're on board, you've got a couple points there, talking about virtual queues, some supplies, and then there's the change in fireworks.
Yeah, so the fireworks is a big one. There were going to be fireworks on 2 different days on our sailing, and we did get that notification via email. So we'll have an actual assignment for that. You will basically get told your day for the fireworks viewing is this day versus the other day, and that's just to help with social distancing and all of that. It is kind of neat they're doing fireworks 2 days, so even if you're not up on deck on the viewing time, you'll still get to kind of maybe see it from a different spot on the ship, which is kind of nifty. So those will be, I believe, I don't know actually which days that people are surmising it's going to be both Castaway Cay days, but who knows? So there's that. That's going to be a big thing. And then we did get a notification that lots of virtual queues. So you do have to actually get into a virtual queue to get on and off the ship at Castaway Cay. So that's going to be something that's a little different. So that'll be interesting to experience. And then different kinds of experiences on the ship will also have a virtual queue potentially in place. And I would guess any of the kind of socially distanced character meet and greets will probably have that too.
So they didn't talk about, though, how the virtual queue would work, or do you sign up the day of, or when you sign up, or anything like that, right?
Yeah, no, we don't have any information. And then it'll be a grand, exciting time when we get there.
What about the 5K? Are they doing that?
They are not doing the Castaway Cay 5K officially. However, if you actually decide to do it on your own, they will give you a medal. I don't know how they're going to monitor that. If there'll be someone sort of where they normally are for the race at the finish line and the start line. I don't know, but I guess it does sound like they are going to give out medals, just not an official 5K, mostly for social distancing.
Are they going to mark it? Because like you have to run out to like this spot towards Serenity Bay and you have to run the loop twice. And anyway, you'll tell us when you get back, but or these people that are cruising next week will let us know, but I'm just so curious how that's going to go.
Yeah, us too, because we had talked about it. We've done the Castaway Cay 5K before, and I was like, oh, do we not do it? Especially since we're there for 2 days. So we'll definitely keep an eye out and see what's happening. And I'm going to be definitely listening and wanting to hear what all the people are finding out before we go too. So I'm going to be watching all the vlogs and everything and listening to y'all with trip reports.
Well, let's keep running with Castaway Cay, and then we'll go back to embarkation. Since we're on Castaway Cay, we had a couple different points there, from the 5K to talking about where the chairs and hammocks may be placed, and also masks on the tram.
So you definitely have to wear masks on the tram. They also said if you're in any of the shops and if you are in any of the food areas, but not actively eating or drinking. So like if you're at Cookies or Serenity Bay Barbecue, Serenity Bay Barbecue obviously is mostly outside, but probably when you go inside for food, that would be a time when you would want to put your mask on. Same with tram, same within the shops. And then, of course, they're doing, sounds like a lot of social distancing and placement of all of the chairs, no hammocks. So if you were a hammock fan, as of right now, you can't utilize those. But of course, there will be lots of loungers and things that I know I will personally be taking advantage of while we're there on Castaway Cay.
And our listeners can't see this, but you've got a beautiful view of Castaway Cay behind you right now on the Zoom call.
I do. I'm channeling this cruise to actually happen so that I will be on Castaway Cay soon.
I wish I was there right now. Any mention about the pool deck stuff as far as, initially they were going to have queues or you'd have to reserve times on the Magic to go up there. And from what John said, that quickly didn't happen.
Yeah, we haven't gotten any notification about virtual queues or reservations for pool time. It does sound like there will be socially distanced loungers and things like that. But it seems like for the most part, it will be kind of normal protocol, just with a few social distancing things in place.
Kind of going backwards, let's go back to embarkation. There was a couple more points that you had there, which I think will help people out as well.
Yeah, so in terms of embarkation day, there are a couple things that are definitely going to be things to think about. We were told that we do have to do a day of health questionnaire, which is, we've done that before. Anytime you go to the terminal, you always have to fill out kind of a 1-page, little half-page paper that says that you're not feeling unwell or things like that. But that'll all be done via the Navigator app. And you're going to do that before you actually get to the port. So the idea is you do as much of the pre-embarkation stuff before you even get there so that you're in the terminal probably as little as possible. That's a good thing for everybody. So you'll have that you'll want to do. Interestingly enough, we did see some photos in the cruise group about health screening tents. So we actually saw some photos of some health screening tents that are already there at Port Canaveral. And those will probably, of course, be for the day of embarkation testing that those under the age of 12 or who are not vaccinated would need to do in order to test to get on the cruise. That was kind of cool to see the photos. I hadn't seen those until recently. So it looks like they're kind of ready to go for everybody.
And then you had a point on luggage tags too?
Yeah. And so the last thing, and actually I have an update from this last note that I had. So a lot of people are asking, everybody loves Disney mail, right? You get that fun stuff. You get your luggage tags. You get excited before the trip. And everyone's like, well, we're a couple weeks out. Where are our luggage tags? It does sound like we may be getting those now. We were told that likely you'd just get a luggage tag when you got to the port. You'd fill some things out on it. I know in the UK, they did a bit of that too. We figured that probably would happen with us. But recently, we were told that they sent all the stuff to the printers from DCL. And so that we might actually be getting those fun, for pre-cruise Disney mail coming soon. So that's another thing in terms of flexibility and patience. Documentation may come in the mail. Documentation may not come in the mail. You just kind of got to wait and see. And I think ultimately a lot of the stuff is going to get handled, at the port day of. And as with always, Disney magic will happen and your stuff will get to your room, even if you didn't get the luggage tags before you got on your cruise ship.
So we can revert it back to what Steve said in the beginning. Remember, for these initial cruises, bring your patience, understanding, and kindness with you.
Flexibility is the key to cruising with Disney.
I mean, I think flexibility is going to be the key to travel in general right now, and compliance with the regulations. Disney does have a very flexible cancellation policy right now. So if you are in a situation where whatever their requirement is not something that you can do, by all means, use that flexible cancellation policy and just cancel. They're trying to do these policies for what they feel is what the CDC is requiring. The CDC is what is going to allow them, frankly, to continue to cruise. They're always going to follow the CDC guidelines and guidance. And so we have to know that these are the requirements as they stand. And if we want to cruise, we have to agree to do it, or we can definitely wait and take the vacation when it looks the way you want it to look again.
100% agree with that.
Well, overall, did you think the process was pretty self-explanatory as far as what the information Disney provided you through the emails and everything else to be able to get checked in and book the activities that you wanted to do, Sarah?
I think so. I think everything was, again, short of maybe limited communication, which can be frustrating sometimes when you don't know. But I think the actual website, once they updated things and they put in like the know before you go information, that's been super helpful. And I think reading that information will really put you in good shape. Read it thoroughly, because, that's where it trips people up, where people get most confused. But overall, it was easy. Just a few minor changes, just some adjustments and adaptations that we had to make, but nothing too crazy. And it's getting us excited to actually be on the ship soon. Starting to feel a little real.
So disembarkation, you mentioned earlier that you would sign up for a queue as to when you would leave the ship as well.
I've heard a couple of different things. I've heard that it will be, you may have to join a queue. It does sound like they will have some different assignments in terms of dining. And when you have that, because we normally have those 2 dining seatings, and it does seem like there will be some adjustments with that, more staggered times. I've heard some people say it could be a little bit later. And of course, even the UK, listening to your most recent interview with John, he said they left at like 9 in the morning. So I would expect it'll be very similar for us here in the US. I think, just kind of keeping flexible and just following what happens throughout the process and just being patient. Things will probably just be pretty normal with some minor adjustments.
I've got a couple of questions about getting to and from the port, Sarah. I know that you live in Florida, so how do you get there? And then Christy, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can still go through Disney Cruise Line and book transportation from your resort to the cruise terminals at a cost. So that is still an option. I think that you can still go to the airport as well with Disney Cruise Line transportation. But how do you get there, Sarah? And if you park in the parking garage, which is what I want to know, can you reserve ahead of time, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we drive. We always drive. For us, we're super duper lucky. Like Christy, it's an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes. So it's pretty reasonable for us. We just prefer to drive there and then park at the terminal. And we got no information at this point about parking being different. So we're keeping an eye on that. But as of right now, it does sound like it will be fairly normal, where you'll be able to show up and park as you normally would. But of course, that could change in the next 2 weeks. We haven't heard anything, but we're certainly prepared for it to have to be reserved in advance.
I talked to somebody yesterday who is going on the August 9th sailing, and they do what we do, which is generally get a rental car and then drop it off they use Hertz. They drop it off at the Hertz rental agency there in Port Canaveral. And he made a point that that's actually closed right now. So that's not an option for him. We've used Avis in the past. I haven't been able to check that out. But if you're thinking about using a rental car, dropping it off, and then picking one back up later. And one of his concerns too was just the price of rental cars and availability, that he was like, once I get a hold of that rental car, I want to keep it. And I think that's what we're going to do in November as well.
There's also private transfers. There's obviously Lyft and Uber, but your results may vary with how that goes. The private transfers, most of those companies, if you are a person who wants your driver to be wearing a mask, most of those you'll be able to ensure that those are, mask wearing is being complied with. If anybody wants my favorite driver, he is limited because he used to have a ton of independent contractors with him, but now he doesn't have as many. But I am happy to give out my favorite driver if you ever want. I know from, generally speaking, just to give an idea, he did raise his rates like a tiny bit now once in 8 years. But to get from the airport to Walt Disney World, just to give you an idea about pricing, his is like $65. So it's going to cost more to go to the port because it's further, but just something to keep in mind. And I'm happy to give that information if anybody wants it at some point.
How would they reach you?
You can reach me at Christy@packyourpixiedust.com.
Perfect. Well, now that we've done all the work, guys, gals, let's have a little bit of fun. Sarah, you're getting back on the Disney Dream. What are you guys looking forward to doing?
Oh my gosh, all the things. All the things. Is that an answer? We're really excited about our stateroom. We love having a veranda stateroom, so we are super stoked about that. We got an extended veranda, which we love, on deck 6. So we're just really looking forward to getting room service and chilling and enjoying the veranda back there. We're looking forward to Cove Cafe because Cove Cafe is the best. And we've got our card ready. I'm really hoping maybe they should do it in the app. Maybe they should have like the rewards club saved in the app. That would be so awesome.
Yeah, but
we're ready for that.
Card, so they probably won't, right? Like they
That's
might.
true.
But...
That's a good point, Christy. We're excited about that. We are not doing Rainforest Room. That's normally a big one for us. And then, of course, Serenity Bay is a huge one for us. We love relaxing there.
Now, when you do Serenity Bay, so do you come back to Cookies One, which is where they have the allergy like abilities, or do you request that they send your food to Serenity Bay?
We go back to Cookies One, and that's because we have had very mixed results with Serenity Bay Barbecue, whether it's just trying to eat there in general. They usually do not want to send our food over there. So we just prefer to take a little bit of a break, go back to Cookies One, gives us an excuse to kind of move around, stretch our legs a bit, and then we'll go back to Serenity Bay afterwards. And it's just super easy for us at the end of the day. We go right at 11 usually, and they usually have our food pretty quickly ready, so it's easy peasy.
And for our listeners, if you are new to cruising Disney Cruise Line with food allergies, Cookies One is where they will have the allergy food. They have in the past agreed to take your food to the other cookies, but honestly, like Sarah said, it's actually more work at this point. It's easier to just go, even if you are somewhere else, or even if you have a cabana for the day. Sometimes you can get the cabana cart driver people to drive you to Cookies One, which is really nice, but then they're not always there to drive you back. So just something to keep in mind. It's just easier to eat there because they have all the stations. They can make all your allergy food. They can accommodate you. They understand what they're doing. They actually have all of the slips from the head waiters like right up front, right behind this big boat thing that they have there. So it's really, really convenient.
Yes, and Brandon has to get his allergy French fries every time we go to Cookies Barbecue because it is the only place you can get the allergy fries if you're going to eat with a special diet when you are on Castaway Cay. It's critical. Fries are critical.
Do they typically have fries in the barbecue, generally speaking? I know they'll do stuff for people with allergies, but is fries typically on the buffet?
No, we get people who are always jealous. They're like, "Where did you get French fries?" And we're like, "Well, we have special dietary needs, and they made them for us specifically." So yeah, that's the only place you can get them. So it's one pro of having a special diet, of having an allergies. We actually get French fries on Castaway Cay. Kind of nice.
So that's a good point as far as sailing on the main dining rooms on the ship. Any changes as far as people with allergies? Did they say anything about that with these sailings?
We haven't heard anything so far, so we're expecting it to be kind of the same. I have watched a lot of the UK vlogs and I've seen some of the menus and they're the exact same menu. The exact same menus do list gluten-free and dairy-free on the menus. They don't go beyond that. So if you have a different allergy, it's not going to say peanut-free or things like that. The Disney Dream did the last year before the pandemic started offering an allergy-friendly menu, which was super awesome. We're really hoping that comes back on this sailing, but we are going in with expectations that they might not have it ready to go. So I'm kind of hoping they do, but if they don't, we'll just kind of go with the regular menu. We've been on the Dream so many times that we have a really good understanding of how it's going to work and some of our favorite things that we know we can get from the existing menus. So that's pretty good.
Okay, one more fun question before we get out of here today, Sarah. Since we haven't talked to you since the Disney Wish came out, Christy's new favorite ship. What are your thoughts about the Wish and some of the announcements they've made, some of the venues for adults, spaces that they just came out with recently? What are you excited about?
Oh, so I'm so excited just for it all. So we are going on the Wish too. We did book a Wish cruise for next fall. Super excited about the Hyperspace Lounge because we are big Star Wars nerds. And so we're jazzed about that. I'm like, it's Skyline Lounge and Star Wars at the same time. It looks awesome. The adult dining looks great. So we're really excited to try Enchante and the new Paolo. And then I did see all of the new Rainforest Room stuff with the outdoor space, which looks pretty awesome. So I'm excited about that too.
Wait, did you book Paulo on your August cruise?
Yes, we're going to do Paolo brunch.
Okay. Oh, good. I'm excited to hear about that post, especially allergies and then, post restarting or however we're calling it these days.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on and kind of updating everybody with your experience going through the online check-in process, booking things, and just, keeping up with what's going on the web as well to be able to get you through this. So I appreciate you bringing this information out. Obviously, as we've talked about, this could change tomorrow as this podcast comes out, and we'll try to keep bringing that back to you as well. We're super excited for you guys to sail on the 23rd, and we'll love to have you guys come back and talk about it. But before we get out of here, you run a blog site itself, gluten-free and dairy-free at Walt Disney World. Can you talk a little bit about that for people who want to know a little bit more information? And how has Disney been doing through the pandemic and on as far as getting that type of information out for people who need those services?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you all for having me again on the show. Super fun. I can't wait to come back and actually talk about all the really fun stuff when we do the cruise, because I feel like all the pre-stuff is not the most exciting. So I'm super excited about that. But Disney World, yeah, so we have a website, and then Brandon and I do a YouTube channel. We do reviews there as well. And so the last year and a half, we've just been kind of experiencing how things are as a local, how Disney's been handling things sort of post-closure and reopening. They've been doing a really great job, and Christy can kind of chime in too on her experiences. I would say overall, a lot of it's still the same. I think the biggest challenges is sometimes restaurants just don't have as many options just because their menus are a bit shorter, so a little bit smaller. But overall, Disney's been doing just as great of a job as they always do. And I get to have my, allergy-friendly waffle fix and chicken tenders. So that always makes me excited. So they haven't lost any of those things. Always really good places to eat. And the quality and the service is just as good as ever. Chrissy, what do you think?
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I agree. I agree completely. We've had some amazing brunches together. Yes. Sarah and I are very compatible breakfast orderers. So we want the same things. So we can order several options and then have them bring additional plates and divide it up. So like she can eat some things and we can just eat like the entire menu. It's so much fun.
Yes, Christy is definitely my brunch buddy. And I love it when other people like brunch because Brandon hates brunch. He's wet blanket. So Christy's my brunch buddy.
And my husband hates brunch too. Like he could care less about breakfast. So it's so nice to have girlfriends that we can go and still enjoy the yumminess and not have to bring our family that is grouchy about being there.
So while you're out around Walt Disney World, watch out for both Sarah and Christy at brunch. So you'll probably run into them somewhere along the way. Sarah, could you give out your website, your blog website before we finish up?
Yeah, so it's gluten-free, dairy-free, wdw.com. You can just look up gluten-free and dairy-free WW on YouTube, and you should find us there too.
And Perfect. We'll include the links in the show notes.
Definitely. Well, as we get out of here, Christy, any final thoughts about getting back to sailing?
Oh, I've already had that little teaser test cruise, and it's so awesome. And I am so excited that Disney Cruise Line is sailing again, and that we have guests that are sailing on these ships that we're going to get to talk to. And it's our little piece of heaven that we get to enjoy while we work and do all the things. So it's so fun to be living in Disney Cruise Line land again.
Once again, Sarah, thanks for coming on and sharing experiences. And I'll give you the floor for your final thoughts about getting back to sailing as well again.
Yeah, thank you again so much. And yeah, cruising is back. I'm so excited. I don't even care what the adjustments are. I just want to be sailing on a Disney cruise ship because it's been too long. Last time we went was January 2020. So any Disney cruise is a good cruise, and I'm very excited to be having one soon. So I cannot wait to share it with everybody and come back and chat with you guys about our experience. And of course, hear what other people have to say too. We can't wait to hear what others are vlogging about or sharing about from their trips as well. So looking forward to it.
Well, thanks again, Sarah. All the best to you as you guys get ready to sail on August 23rd. Bon voyage. Enjoy your time in Castaway Cay, and we'll look forward to talking to you when you get back.
Thank you.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Sarah for coming on and sharing her experiences as she gets ready to cruise on the beautiful Disney Dream this coming August 23rd. And you can catch all of Sarah's information over at glutenfreedairyfreewdw.com. You can look for a link to that in the show notes. And I really want to thank Sarah for doing that, because if you're like me, a lot of us kind of take it for granted that we can go down to Walt Disney World, cruise on Disney Cruise Line, and we can eat whatever we want, but a lot of people can. And Sarah does just such an amazing job over at her blog, glutenfreedairyfreewdw.com, breaking down all the menus over at Walt Disney World, and also while she's on Disney Cruise Line. So just a huge shout out to Sarah for coming on and helping us with our show, but also for all that she does over on her blog as well and helping others. Well, a lot of content coming out this week, as the Disney Dream has already sailed with her first sailing with paying passengers. She is back, and we've got a trip report coming to you hopefully on Tuesday. Look for it either Tuesday or Wednesday this week. And then we have a special live show planned Monday, August 16th. As you may be listening to this episode, be sure to tune in to our Facebook and YouTube channels for Lake and Katie from Mouse Gen. They just got off the Disney Dream, and they're going to join Christy and Chris live and talk about their experiences there. Well, if you've been enjoying these podcasts, we sure would appreciate it if you would share it with others. That helps spread the word of the Disney cruising community. Also, I'd like to give a huge shout out to all our Patreon supporters. Each and every week, they help bring these shows to you. You can find out more about our Patreon program by going over to patreon.com/DCL podcast and find out all the information there. Well, between now and our next show, as summer's coming to an end, if you and your family are heading out on a vacation before school starts, on behalf of myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, all of us here at the DCL podcast, we'd like to wish you be well, take care of each other, enjoy the time you have with each other, and we'll see you next time on the DCL podcast.
The DCL podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.